Hello and welcome to this video series on historic heat, helping you on your journey to net zero. We know that lots of churches are struggling with their historic buildings, heating them, staying comfortable, and that's why we've made this video series. To hopefully provide a framework for assessing your options. You're probably not going to do exactly the same things as everyone else, but actually monitoring similar things can help you understand how your building is performing so that you can then have those informed discussions with your energy auditor or your heating consultant. My name's Katie and I'm the founder of Cherubim. These videos are all part of the work that we're doing around sustainability of historic buildings and net zero. You'll also be hearing from my colleague Amy, who will be taking you through some tools, and we're super excited to be working with Dr. Robin Pender, a building physicist and conservator who has worked most recently with Historic England's climate and adaptation team, and she'll be taking you through the science, helping you understand from first principles why it is that your building is doing some of the things that it's doing, perhaps why you feel cold even with the heating on. And that will hopefully help to inform lots of the decisions that you make in the ways that you look after your building, the ways you inhabit it, and even the ways that you adapt it in order to work with the features that it was built with. So we're really excited and we can't wait to get started. In her own words, here's Robin to tell you what it's all about.
It's an experiment. It's about co-creation to teach people without a particular background in building performance to find out how they can sail their own buildings, because no one can do that better than the people using and looking after the building. So here we go. We all feel overwhelmed by what really seem to be conflicting pressures and priorities, and now with climate change and net zero and biodiversity loss, we can add to all that a terrible sense of urgency. But what this project is about is unpacking all those apparent conflicts and looking at things afresh through the twin lenses of history and science. And what we find is that the problems haven't arisen where we think they have, but when you track them back, they all arrive at much the same source, and that's fossil fuel slaves. Somewhere starting in the Industrial Revolution, but then really getting going after the Second World War, we started throwing fossil fuels at every problem we came across, and after a while we stopped seeing all the other potential solutions to what was bothering us. And by doing that, we gave ourselves all sorts of complications that ended up forming a wicked problem. We actually do have a whole lot of the knowledge we need to untie the Gordian knot. And what's even better is we've got every reason to believe that once we all remember how to run our buildings without flinging oil and gas at them, we'll also be improving on the health and happiness we get from them too. Which isn't to say that anyone as yet has all the answers. We're all having to relearn a lot of what we simply forgot. And now we live in this brave new world where policymakers and even a lot of ordinary people who you would have thought would have had an interest in not spending money are still seeing the standard solutions. Everyone's really enthralled to technology-driven, market-driven solutions. It's weird how many of us would rather trust the word of a company making money out of something over the disinterested voices or even over our own common sense. Before COVID, therefore, it was actually proving possibly difficult to do anything to shift that mindset, but it's an ill wind. Now we've all spent so much more time living and working and therefore getting to know our particular buildings, we've been finding out that they're just like sailing ships. To get them working well for you, you have to trim them individually according to the weather and what they are and who's in them and what they're trying to do. And everyone noticed that once they started paying attention to how they actually felt in the building, they stopped looking at the thermometer. And one of the things we do know that we're going to show you is why thermostats are such a bad guide to thermal comfort. We're about to head off on a really special journey together in which you're going to learn how to sail your own buildings really well, and at the same time we're going to be picking your brains and getting you to help us understand what it really is that we need to measure and monitor to understand how any building's working, and to be able to check that we're on the right trajectory to using less energy and carbon in that building, and be able to check continually. Our big question is actually, what is the least we need to record about a building and how we're using it to be able to be sure we're on that right pathway and be able to keep checking easily as we go on? And what are the tools that ordinary building users need for that. And the co-creation is going to go beyond that, because we also want to work with you to find out the best ways of teaching other people what we find out, so that they can learn to sail their own buildings too. Can we get it to work? And if we can we get it then to snowball? Of course, we could be, or probably should be, doing this for all buildings, but this focuses squarely on churches because they make a really interesting subset. We know you're all struggling with trying to balance increasing costs with the need to cut carbon and at the same time use the church more. And church buildings and their layouts are similar enough that what we learn in one church should help another, but they're all different enough too that we're pretty sure we're going to find out lots of interesting new things. And even more importantly, there are lots of similarities and differences in the way the churches are used and by whom and how, because the people element is the one that this is really concentrating on, because it's the one that keeps being left out of so many of the calculations you see out there. To start you off on this journey, we've prepared films strung together for you, which should be something really exciting, so we can get stuck into all the practicalities. These films are designed to help you understand the background so that you can make a start on assessing your own buildings for yourselves, and to help you set up and play with the kit. Although we've been involved in things like environmental monitoring and sustainability for many years, and we're basing the films on those experiences, this is actually breaking new ground. No one's ever tried to help PCCs to lead on assessing their building's performance before, but we are convinced that the people most involved in the running of the building should also lead in planning for its future. I'm hoping you're not going to find that anything near as dry as it sounds. The thing is, although people talk a lot about the technology these days, they really don't talk much about science, and they're actually very different things. I hope you'll find, like me, that the science is actually much more straightforward and easy to understand than the technology, and that it also gives you all sorts of light bulb moments that open up new and exciting possibilities that we've all been neglecting. Some of it's physics, things like how the building reacts with water and temperature and light. But just as important is the science of the people, and especially how we react physically to our surroundings, how we sense thermal comfort. It's called thermal physiology because the legion of misunderstandings around thermal physiology is where all our energy input's been skyrocketing, and that's been putting our health at risk in ways that don't seem to be much talked about outside of medicine. So we're going to see if we can help to change that. The story ties into learning how to sail your building, of course. So at the end of each film, we're going to give you a short exercise, some gnome work if you like, so you can try to put the general concepts into practical form for your building. Because this whole story centers around energy and around thermal comfort, we're going to begin with a little physics, investigating what we actually mean about temperature and what it is and how it works.
Hi, it's Amy from Cherubim here. I'll be popping into these videos to help talk through the gnome work and offer some additional hints and tips to get you started. With that in mind, and before we get stuck into the video series, we'd encourage you to gather together information that we know you already have, which might prove useful in applying the insights from the videos to your specific building context. For example, your QI report has so much information about your building fabric, the materials it's made from, and the condition that it's currently in. Service registers will help you understand who is using your building, when they're using it, and what they're using it for, which informs our understanding of comfort. You may also have records related to your energy use, such as the timetable for when you turn your heating on, or energy bills themselves, which can be really, really insightful. It would be useful to have these sorts of records and this information ready to hand throughout the video series. You might also want to think about who should be involved in the project. Should it be you, members of the PCC, maybe even people in your congregation or your wider church community? Think about who's going to help you on that path to net zero. How are you going to communicate and record your observations, your conversations, and the insights that you're gathering? Will a simple notebook and pen be enough, or do you want to start taking digital photographs? You might even want to annotate copies of your building plan. You can upload records to your digital building notebook at my.cherubimapp.com. We want this video series to be as useful to you as possible, helping you make best use of the information and resources you already have to hand. We're really excited to be working with you, to learn more about you and your building, and to help you on your journey to net zero. See you in the next video.